This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss, co-host of PBS's Motor Week. He'll take your calls and comments now at 844-885-4677 or email him at radio@goss-garage.com. And now, Pat Goss.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Goss's Garage. I'm Pat Goss. If you'd like to talk about anything at all that deals with automobiles or anything with an engine in it, because all engines pretty much work the same, give me a call, 844-885-4677. All right, now, do-it-yourself can save money if you know what you're doing. But lack of car knowledge is an epidemic. And just when I think I've seen it all, something more magnificently stupid comes along. A classic happened across from my shop. A guy hit a piece of metal in the curb while parking and gouged a pork chop-sized slab of rubber out of his right front tire. The 4-inch by nearly half-inch thick gash was exposing the tire's inner steel belts. Anyone with the sense of your average earthworm could see the tire was totally shot and unsafe to use. It was what we call a will pop, because drive on it and it will pop. But this not-so-smart driver opened his trunk and pulled out his easy fix, a large tube of glue. Yep, one of those super strong miracle glues that look so good in commercials but rarely work in real life. Why not glue it? In the commercial, 2 drops of the sticky stuff will lift an elephant, so a whole tube should easily hold the tire together. Or not. Less than a block up the street, the tire disintegrated. Fortunately, blew apart before he reached cruising speed, and only his fender was damaged. Now next is the car that came into the shop with a broken timing belt and severely, I mean severely damaged engine. One of my techs called me over saying, "Pat, you have got to see this." Under the hood was what looked like a pair of pantyhose. Pantyhose material was wound around the crankshaft pulley and had been forced into the timing belt cover in such a way that it broke the car's timing belt. Now, seems the owner had seen a video on the internet that said you can temporarily replace a broken fan belt with twisted and tied pantyhose. Really? How dumb can one person be? But the best one recently is where a guy had an exhaust leak that wouldn't pass state inspection. Actually, his exhaust system had leaks everywhere. Now, our best estimate was about $600 to fix the problems with new parts. The guy went ballistic on us, telling us we were trying to cheat him and trying to steal his hard-earned money. He took the car away, saying he could fix it for under $100. Well, we didn't see the car again for about 2 weeks when it was towed back into the shop. The dimwit had bought several rolls of duct tape and set about wrapping every inch of his exhaust system with several layers of the sticky stuff. It was nearly half an inch thick from the engine to the rear bumper. Well, almost. There was a section near the catalytic converter where the pipe was bare except for some seriously burned duct tape. His wacky wrap job was a pyromaniac's dream because the heat from the exhaust had ignited the duct tape, which had flamed up, melting a major portion of the main wire harness behind the engine. In this case, a goofy repair totaled his car. Now, these are all things that we've seen many times over the years, so they aren't once-in-a-lifetime mistakes. There are thousands of these lunatic ideas out there, so please, folks, be smarter than an earthworm. unless you completely understand what you're doing. Let a pro do it. That's it, folks. Hey, we see some really, really strange stuff that comes into the shop where people have tried to do their own repairs and so on. Oh, you would not believe the things that we see. We've seen 2x4s in springs and all sorts of stuff. So if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know the right way to do it or don't have the tools to do it, and that's a biggie, if you don't have the right tools, you can get seriously hurt on a lot of these things. And just like the guy with the duct tape on the exhaust system, we've seen that time and time again. Usually it just makes a huge stink and burns up, but in some cases it actually does damage to the car, like in this case where it just roasted the wire harness and made the car a total. Folks, we are going to take a break. Now, coming up for all you GM performance buffs, we have a very special guest. We're going to talk to Jason Harding. He's the director of aftermarket operations for Katech. And if you know anything about high-performance GM engines, you know the name Katech. So Jason will be with us right after the break.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
How quickly we forget. We're right back to using short-term logic to make long-term purchases. There's a huge increase in sales of big, thirsty vehicles. Trucks, SUVs, and other vehicles with dismal gas mileage are selling like hotcakes. Yes, they're wonderful, but can your budget support such a thirsty beast when gas prices go back to $4 a gallon? Did you plan on that? On the plus side, if you're considering a thrifty car, you might get a real deal. With so many drivers ignoring reality, there are more hybrid and plug-ins in stock. Traditionally, hybrids have not been a great deal because when gas prices are sky high, everyone wants one, which pushes their prices up, sometimes so high that you might have to pay over window sticker to get a hybrid or a plug-in. But higher purchase prices mean it can take years to break even through savings at the pump. It has taken many drivers so long to break even that trade-in time came before they broke even. But cheaper gas zaps hybrid demand, and less demand can mean a better deal. So if you've been thinking about an economy car, now might be the time. That's using long-term logic to buy a long-term product. That's smart. Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe too because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677.
This portion of Goss's Garage is brought to you by BG Products. Now, joining us on the line, we have a very special guest, Jason Harding. He is the Director of Aftermarket Operations for Katech, Inc. And if you know anything about high-performance GM vehicles and engines and so on, certainly you know that line of products. Jason, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, sir. Hey, give us a little background on Katech and on yourself, if you would, please.
Sure. So Katech is in its 40th year this year. We got our start building engines for endurance racing programs. Got into GM pretty early. We started in 1977 with a Renault program, but then moved into the IROC program. We supplied the engines for the entire IROC series in the Camaros from 1984 to 1989. In the 90s, we moved on to Trans Am and a little bit of NASCAR and did A.J. Foyt's IRL Indy Racing Championship winning team in 1998. And in 97, we got into the Corvette racing program with GM. And we did the Corvette C5R development, the C6R, the race in 24 hours of Le Mans, all the way through their GT1 days until they switched to GT2. And in 2005, we got really serious about the aftermarket and began offering standardized packages for street cars, for Corvettes and Camaros. And your private customer can come into Katech and get their car built and their engine package built by the same technicians who build Le Mans winning championship engines.
Okay. Now, as far as the parts and everything are concerned, I've been privy to seeing and using and so on, and the stuff that you build is absolutely amazing. It's like a work of art.
Thank you. Yeah, our attention to detail in the aftermarket is basically the same as we take for endurance racing engines. So to win a 24-hour race, you need to have a stable valve train and a very durable engine and high-quality parts, and we apply those principles to our aftermarket products, and we're very particular about the products that come out of our store. So you're getting that same level of quality and precision for the parts for your car.
Now, if and this is strictly GM, but say I have a Corvette, I can come to you and have my Corvette modified, or I can buy an engine package from you. How does all that work?
Yeah, you can buy crate engines from us. We can ship them to you or your local installer, or what a lot of people choose is just to drop off the whole car, and we take care of the entire process start to finish. We have standardized packages that are proven and tested, and we'll work on your car in our shop and tune it and test it and deliver you a running car with a warranty.
Okay, and the warranty then on the engine that you put in, it becomes a Katech warranty as opposed to GM. Is that right?
Right. The warranty we provide on our standardized packages when installed at Katech is 12 months, 12,000 miles.
Okay. Now, you also have a wide selection of horsepowers and engine types and so on available.
Correct. I mean, we have packages for C5, C6, C7, and of course other GM V8 powered vehicle packages such as the Cadillac CTS-V, Camaro, G8 trucks, all the LS and LT powered late model GM products.
Okay, now what's the highest horsepower that you offer?
We have packages that are up to 1,500 horsepower, turbocharged.
So you got some pretty serious stuff there.
Yeah. We recently built a LSX 427 for twin turbo package in a Superlight SLC, which is, they call it a kit car, but it's really a purpose-built race car. And it's about a 2,200 pound car that's getting 1,500 horsepower LSX twin turbo. So anything from that to, your standard street car or your your street car that does high-performance driving events. A lot of our customers do road racing and high-performance driving events. We're doing a lot of C7 Z06 stuff now. We have 800 horsepower packages for the C7 Z06 that are very popular right now.
Okay, so you've got something for everybody that is into high performance.
Yeah, everything from a street car to drag racing to high-performance driving events into more professional road racing type of cars. And that's just in our performance department. And then our motorsports department services the pro race teams. We actually have the pole position this weekend at the Belle Isle Grand Prix in both the Trans Am class and the TA2. We power Ernie Francis Jr.'s Breathless Pro Racing Mustang in the Trans Am class. And we power about half the field of Camaros in the TA2 class. And Gar Robinson of Robinson Racing has the pole in TA2 this weekend. We're also in the IMSA PC class. We have the entire field in IMSA PC, and that's also racing at the Belle Isle Grand Prix this weekend.
Okay, now you actually drive some of these cars, right?
Yeah, I do high-performance driving events. My personal vehicle is a C7 Z06 that has our 800 horsepower package plus the E85 flex fuel package, so it's about 830 at the crank. We're making 715 rear-wheel horsepower and over 735 pound-feet of torque at 3,500 RPM. We use that car for marketing, promotion, product development. It's all stickered up with Katech logos, and it's got a big wing on it, waiting on some wheels and a big splitter that's going on it. So you'll see it a lot on the internet, Instagram, Facebook, Corvette Forum, and other forums that we participate in, and that showcases our products.
Okay, now, if somebody checks out Katech, they can find your driving events and things like that as well.
Yeah, they can go to katechengines.com and check us out. They can also follow us on Instagram. If you just type Katech into the search terms of Instagram or Facebook, you'll come up with our Facebook page and our Instagram page. And we like to post pictures of what's going on in the shop, so you get a little bit of an inside look of what we're working on and what the newest products are and what the newest vehicles that we're putting out of our car shop. So it's fun to follow that.
Okay. Well, Jason, we are out of time. I want to thank you sincerely for joining us this morning. One more time, what's the website?
katechengines.com.
Okay.
Or Katech_Inc. On Instagram and Katech Performance on Facebook.
All right. Jason, thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, take care. All right, we're going to take a break. We will be right back on Goss's Garage.
Operators are standing by to take your call for Pat at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Think you'll get a deal buying a used car from an individual instead of a dealer? Possibly, but there's a good chance you'll get taken if you wind up dealing with a curbstoner. Curbstoners are low-life scum who buy cars with problems, cobble them together, roll back the miles, make them look good, and resell them. They usually claim the car belonged to a friend or relative, and there's a sad story about a death, financial woes, illness, or other tragedy. If you buy from one of these crooks, you'll probably get a great-looking car, but in poor mechanical or body condition at a slightly lower price. But you won't get a warranty or a good, reliable car. Curbstoner cars are often so bad they only have scrap value. There are curbstoner cars all over the internet, in nearly every shopping center and sitting along the road. Total loss, flood cars are a curbstoner favorite because there are tens of thousands of them and they're easy to disguise. So, when buying off the street, question everything. When was the title issued? Is it in the seller's name? Does it show the seller's proper address? Is it from another state? Of course, always have a shop check any used car and get a Carfax vehicle history report before paying a dime. Curbstoners are crooks who will happily steal your money. So be really careful. I get lots of questions about BG products, many about specific products or services like, is BG 44K really that good, or are BG transmission, cooling system, and power steering flushes actually necessary? But most popular of all, do I use BG products in my cars? Well, the answer to all of those questions is yes. A regular schedule of BG flushes and chemicals will deliver the longest possible life from all the lubricated and fuel delivery parts on your vehicles. And do I use BG products? You bet I do. I drive nice cars, and I drive a lot. Plus, my live radio and TV shows mean that my cars have to be absolutely reliable. A no start from dirty fuel injectors or a failed transmission just isn't acceptable in my life. Remember, deposits and dirty fluids ruin expensive parts. For reliability like I demand, visit one of the quality shops that sell BG products and perform BG services. To find a BG professional near you, bgfindashop.com.
Now, back to Goss's Garage with your host, Pat Goss.
Hey folks, please subscribe to Goss's Garage on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and for more information and great tips and so on, check us out at goss-garage.com. All right, 844-885-4677 if you have any kind of a question about something with an engine in it. Now, Vinny has a 98 Toyota Corolla, 288,000 miles on it. Must take pretty good care of it. It says manual transmission. Recently I had 4 new tires put on it, and they said that I needed an outer tie rod end when they were putting the tires on it, and they replaced it. What I noticed soon after is that when I accelerate from a stop, the wheels pull noticeably to the right with my hands off the wheel. Even with my hands on the wheel, I can feel it pull dramatically to the right, but it is easily corrected. The pull is not strong, like I have to fight the wheel, but the pull is noticeable. It does not do it all the time. It happens occasionally. I went back to the tire place and mentioned the problem, and one tech said that it could be a broken motor mount. I did break motor mounts on my old inline V8 engine Chevys in the 60s, and it was noticeable because the stick shift would cock to the right when I let out the clutch in first gear. My Toyota, as you know, has a transverse engine. Any ideas? Yeah, absolutely. When you get any front-wheel drive car that all of a sudden starts to pull during acceleration or begins to vibrate heavily during acceleration, and the harder you accelerate, the worse the problem is. You let off on it, the problem gets better. What is it? It is typically an engine mount problem. Now, if you stop and think about the way a front-wheel drive car is set up, the axles go out to each wheel. So if an engine mount breaks and the engine shifts to one side or the other, you can push on those axles in the direction that it has moved, and that can lead to this pulling to one side or the other. It's called torque steer. All right, so the other thing is that some of these, the engine will move so far that it will cause the inner CV joint to bind. And I mean seriously bind. And when that happens, it will cause a vibration like nothing you have ever seen. Because on the inner CV joint, there are 3 segments to it, 3 bearings on it, and every time one of those comes against the inner portion of the CV joint, it will push the engine to the side, and then the engine will snap back, so you're actually bouncing the engine back and forth on the broken engine mounts. So it's like a 300-pound pendulum being thrown back and forth, and believe me, that will cause the car to shake. So whenever you have torque steer where it pulls to one side, or you have a serious vibration during acceleration, first thing you check on front-wheel drive is engine mounts. Now, in some cases, like on Chrysler minivans and so on, what we see on those is that the engine mounts get out of adjustment, and they do have a provision for adjustment, and you have to know how to do it, but usually the engine moves toward the left side of the car. This causes the inner CV joint to bind as it rotates, and you get this horrible vibration. So anytime at all, when torque steer comes on with no explanation, never did it before, no problems or anything, all of a sudden you have torque steer or you have this vibration during acceleration, check those engine mounts. And keep in mind that some of the mounts may be hard to see. They may be down low at the end of the transmission, different things like that. So it isn't just looking at the one right there in your face. Now, another thing that we find with bad engine mounts is where when you come to a stop, and especially with the air conditioning on, you come to a stop, the engine is idling, and the steering wheel just vibrates like crazy. Well, that certainly is going to suggest that you need to check the engine mounts, because the engine mounts are put in the car to prevent normal engine vibrations. All engines vibrate. So the job of the engine mount is to prevent that normal vibration from being transmitted into the car where you can feel it. So all of a sudden you've got a vibration at idle, check the engine mounts. Now here's where you might get into trouble. You see, there are good, indifferent, and horrible engine mounts out there. So you start shopping for the cheapest part in town. And believe it or not, the rubber in a good engine mount, the firmness of it is calibrated to the vibrations of the engine and things like that. So lots of times your best resource is going to be the dealer for an OEM part, or from a high quality parts supplier like Rock Auto or something like that. Now, the problem here is you go out, you buy new engine mounts, and you buy the cheapest crap you can find. You put them in, and lo and behold, the vibration is as bad or worse than it was before. So what went on here? Well, those cheap-ass mounts that you bought, the rubber in them is too hard. It's just like having the engine bolted to the chassis of the car, and all of the vibrations and everything come right straight through the car. Usually you'll feel it in the steering wheel, sometimes in the floor, and it's nothing more than cheap junk, brand new, but cheap junk engine mounts. I can't tell you how many we take out of cars in a year's time here in the shop. they're just absolute total garbage. Now, other things that you have to be aware of is that suppose you have a broken transmission cooling line, you might have a bad power steering hose, a bad air conditioning hose. All of these sorts of things, in many cases, are caused by bad engine mounts. And the reason for that is a lot of these things go down around the front of the engine. Well, the front engine mount breaks on your front-wheel drive car, and now when you accelerate, the engine rocks up. And when you let off, it drops back down. Sometimes you'll feel that, sometimes you won't. But the fact of the matter is that these hoses and lines and things like that are very close to the subframe or suspension components in the vehicle, when the engine moves too much, it may drag these hoses and so on over some part of the frame or a sharp object, and over time, this excessive movement will wear a hole through a hose or a line, and you have a leak. Either your AC quits or your transmission cooling lines start to leak, and things like that, power steering leaks. So a lot of that can be traced to engine mounts. So be really, really astute when it comes time to diagnose one of these problems, or make sure that your technician is, because they need to check the cause of the failed part, which the failed AC hose, which may be an expensive hose in some cases, that might be caused by a bad, broken, or weak engine mount. So don't overlook these things. Make sure the technician looks to see why your AC or your power steering or your transmission cooling line, why did these things fail? And that means you've got to check the engine mounts. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back in a minute right here on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe, too, because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com. Don't fall victim to "it looks good, therefore it must be good." Like when thump bump you're tapped by another car at a traffic light or in a parking lot. You get out and look, and being a good person, yeah, right. You just don't want the hassle of calling the cops and your insurance company. Plus, you don't even see a scratch, so you let it go. That could be a minor to deadly mistake. What you see is purely cosmetic, but hidden behind the cosmetics are safety systems. Those hidden parts absorb and dissipate energy, and they may have been damaged in that tiny bump. The problem is that unless you have energy absorbers and crumple zones checked, they may not protect you if your car is hit again in the same spot. Most safety parts are one-time use, and that first minor bump may have used up a portion of their effectiveness. Then, in an actual accident, they're only partially effective. For instance, the energy absorber may transmit more of the crash energy into the car and the people in the car. That could mean the difference between no or minor injuries or something worse, especially for young or elderly passengers. Even in bumps that seem like a total non-issue, take a minute to exchange information, then have the safety parts behind the bumper checked. It might save a life.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
This portion of Goss's Garage is brought to you by BG Products. Now, seems to me at some point I've heard a song saying something about tiny bubbles. Well, I guess in a song, tiny bubbles are perfectly fine and maybe desirable, and maybe there's some places in life where tiny bubbles might be a benefit. But one place tiny bubbles are not a benefit is in your cooling system. Now, what am I talking about? Well, I don't know if you've ever heard the term cavitation. See, cavitation is where these little bubbles, air bubbles, form usually around the water pump in your cooling system. Now, this is a big problem on a lot of vehicles, especially on diesels and so on, but any car can have problems with them. And the issue here is that these bubbles are actually relatively high pressure bubbles. And at some point, they are going to rupture. Now, I know it's hard to comprehend, but if you can think of a little bubble in the cooling system, expanding, exploding, rupturing, whatever you want to call it, with such force that it leaves little pockmarks in the metal next to it, well, that's what cavitation is. And if you don't take care of the cooling system, if you don't take care of the things that cause cavitation, these tiny bubbles that explode and damage the metal, sooner or later, you're going to have problems with your water pump, or you're going to have problems with the engine itself. Now, the thing that happens here is that individually, these don't really do much of anything. But if you think of them as being millions or billions of these little bubbles that form in there, and over a long period of time, these bubbles just keep hammering away at the metal of the water pump impeller, which may also be plastic, or the metal of the water pump housing and things like that. It's kind of like taking BBs and shooting them at the metal for, just constantly for great periods of time. And as those BBs keep hitting the metal, you're going to see little indentations, and then you're going to see little flakes of metal being knocked off of the water pump impeller or the water pump housing, until eventually what happens is that you will destroy the impeller, or the housing behind the impeller will get holes in it, and as a result of that, what you wind up with is, in many cases, is going to be that you have coolant getting into the oil in your engine or something like that. So these are things that you have to be aware of. Now, what causes cavitation? Well, there's a number of things. Some engines are more prone to it than others. That is based on the speed of the water pump and so on. Remember that on different cars, water pumps turn at different speeds. Some of them turn at the same speed as the engine. So when you're going down the road at 2,500 RPM, the water pump is turning at 2,500 RPM. Some of them are underdriven, which simply means that the pulley for the belt that drives the water pump is larger than the pulley on the bottom of the engine at the crankshaft that's turning the water pump. So in those cases, what you have is a relatively slow turning water pump, maybe engine turning 2,500, you might have the water pump turning at 2,000. But the majority of them are overdriven. And that simply means that the pulley on the water pump is smaller than the pulley that is driving the belt. So you might have an overdriven ratio where 2,500 RPM on the engine means that the water pump is turning at 3,000 or 3,500 or 4,000 revolutions per minute. And the higher the revolutions per minute, the more likely we are to see cavitation. So that means that you have to have the right coolant. The coolant has to be in good condition, and it has to have all of the proper additives. Now, additives in coolants, some of the products have additives to prevent cavitation. And if you have a diesel and there happens to be a label under the hood that says you're supposed to use Ford Motor Company additive blankety blankety blank, you better do it, because another place where you get cavitation, especially in diesels, is around the cylinders. And on some diesel engines, this cavitation can actually eat away at the cylinder liner and cause serious, massive damage to the engine. So just one more reason why you should be keeping track of the coolant. You can do that with coolant test strips. Do it twice a year. When it fails on a coolant test strip, regardless of what the coolant looks like, replace the coolant, flush the cooling system. Replace the coolant with the proper type of coolant for your engine. So the engine or the coolant that goes into a Ford may not be adequate for the coolant that goes into a GM, which may not be adequate for the coolant that goes into a Nissan or a Toyota and so on. So you've got to make sure that the coolant that you use matches the requirements of your engine. And cavitation is real. It does serious, serious damage to some engines. Don't let it happen to yours. We'll take a break. We'll be right back on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
You probably don't think about it, but if you double the life of your car, your fixed expenses per mile will drop 50%. But how can you double the life of a car? Well, that's easy. Simply use BG products and flushes for your routine maintenance. I'll bet you know someone whose cars last a lot longer than yours, plus they never seem to have problems. Now you can enjoy those great savings too. Simply enroll in the BG Protection Plan, and BG will guarantee covered parts for as long as you own your car, in writing. With the BG Protection Plan, long after your car is paid off, you'll still have years of warranty left. Think about it. No payments and no worries about major repair bills. That's amazing. It's almost too good to be true because the BG Protection Plan is also absolutely free. My cars are covered by the BG Protection Plan. Yours should be too. For details, bgprod.com or 800-327-8883.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
This portion of Goss's Garage, it's brought to you by BG Products. Hey, we have a question here about trading in a car. You'll see ads all the time where the dealer says, we'll off this negative, and ultimate settlement office, typically they will sit down and they will do a line item explanation for you, explaining what each line on the contract that you're about to sign, what it means, how it affects you, and so on. And that's the way a good dealer works. And they get down to this, and they'll explain, this is the negative equity where you owed more on your car than it was worth. Here we are adding it into the total that you are financing for the new car. And they explain that this is going to increase your payment by blankety blank and so on. So that's the way most of them handle things like that. And as I say, there's nothing illegal about it. It is a common business practice. The big thing that gets me is that there are so many of you that think that, oh, I'm getting over on the dealer. You know, I had a person the other day talking to me and telling me how they got over on the dealer because they owed almost $2,000 more on their trade than they were allowed, and the dealer took care of it. And this guy was so happy and so out of it, I didn't have the heart to tell him that, no, they didn't give him all this extra money. They didn't give him almost $2,000. They didn't give him anything. He's making payments on it. He borrowed that money from the finance company, and he gave that negative amount of money to the dealer. The dealer did not give it to him. Yeah, come on, folks. This is not rocket science. You know, all of these things, and of course, you know, in some cases you might come up against somebody that's crooked, but by and large, the vast, and I do mean vast majority of dealers, especially new car dealers where they have a huge investment and something to lose, they're not going to try to scam you on $1,000 or something like that because they have too much to lose. So negative equity, you pay for it, the dealer doesn't. You pay for it in your loan, you reimburse that to the dealer. Now, one other thing that is actually a scam, you'll see where dealers will tell you that, you know, come on in, you can put 0 down or 100 down or something like that. You go in, you make the deal. Then they give you the car. This is called spot delivering. And they have you sign documents and so on and so forth. Then you take the car home. You're madly in love with the car. And a couple days later, the dealer is on the line calling you saying, hey, we have a problem with the financing on your car. You need to bring us another $500. to make this work. So you say, okay, well, I like the car. I'm going to do that. So you go back in, you sign a new contract. And of course, in the contract, it says subject to lender approval. Okay, so that means that it's non-binding until the lender that they're going to sell your contract to approves it and accepts it. So you go merrily along your way, and in a couple, 3 days, you get another call. You say, well, we got a problem here yet. We thought we had it resolved, but we need another $500,000, $700,000, whatever it might be. And now you're getting a little perturbed, but you still love your brand new car or your brand new used car. Whatever it is, it's something that you wanted, you want to keep. All right, we'll do it one more time. Well, that is something that in many cases can be a scam, because what the dealer is trying to do, and you may find this in lesser quality dealerships, some used car dealerships and stuff like that. Certainly not all, but we see it from time to time. And what they're doing is they are bettering their deal by telling you that the finance company has rejected the deal. Now, maybe the finance company did, maybe the finance company didn't. But if they didn't, then every $500, every $100, every $1,000 that you go back to the dealer and give to them, that money is going into the profit on their deal. So you have to be really, really careful with stuff like that. And you have to read the paperwork. I know it's cumbersome. I know it's difficult to understand. But the thing that you do, you have a copy of the original contract that you signed. At least I hope you do. That you wouldn't sign a contract and walk out without a copy of what you signed. So you have the original contract, and now you're being presented with another contract, and you sit down and you pull out your original and you start looking line for line to see what the differences are and how that extra money is being treated. Because if you go through it, you may find that that money is being, that $1,000 may be being subtracted from your trade-in or added to the price that you're paying or something like that, where one of the lines doesn't match up, and you say, whoa, wait a minute here. And then you see that you are actually paying more money for the car that you just bought, and you originally bought for a different price. So the thing that I'm saying here is that all of the prices and everything on the original contract should carry over to the new contract. And you might want to call the finance company to see what their position on all of this is, because in some cases, could be some kind of a scam between the salesperson and the finance company, where that extra money gets split between somebody at the finance company and the salesperson. Not saying it happens a lot, but I'm saying it does happen. So make it a point to read and understand any contract, any paper that is involved in buying a car. Folks, we have done it again right here on Goss's Garage. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Steve McMillan, George Stockton, and Stevie McMillan for producing today's show. For everyone here at Goss's Garage, I'm Pat Goss. Until next time, big favor to ask, drive gently. We'll see ya.